On something of a roll here. This sort of follows on from the last video. I feel it's something so simple and, well, in all other cases, there is far more to it outside of it. But the answer for this is purely as an illustration, so it's a bit of a conundrum because what I'm about to do is as an illustration, but bear with me and I think you'll get the idea what I'm trying to get at here. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm sitting. Now I'm standing up. Now just think about this. This precludes even discussing where the idea came from, or outside of, just for the demonstration purpose of this video, as the reasons as to why there was the action from going from a sitting position to a standing position. I'm using this because I feel it is so simple as an example to use, because pretty much, unless there is some medical reason, some physical reason that prevents you from doing it, it's still safe to assume that it's something you've all experienced. And like I say, precluding the reasons as to why and where the idea came from and why you've gone from sitting to standing, try explaining it. The whole process. Okay, you could go to a biologist and get a breakdown of the mechanics of the biology, perhaps, but that is not going to explain the transfer of thought to physical body following instruction and the speed in which it happens, and how conscious are we really of doing that awareness of thought to action like that, and see how difficult it becomes to put into words something you can all experience and probably have experienced so many times. It is just so, it's second nature. This is the whole thing about it. The repetition, it becomes such second nature that you don't even give it a thought. It's just a thought and it happens like an automatic response. But try and explain it. There's this whole unseen thing that starts off inside. I mean, where did the idea come from moving from a sitting to a standing position for a start? Not as easy as it sounds, is it? I mean, how long would it take to even write a brief overview of that whole process? Something so simple and something pretty much all of us do many times in one day. And this also highlights, I feel, you've got the whole, before the idea, where did the idea come from to do that? And it doesn't even take into account, you may get the sensation if you stand up too quick, you go lightheaded for whatever reason. There's so much that comes into this, outside of even that, just describing that basic action. Now, perspective on something. Now look, if I was going to do a journey, so the physical journey, let's see if I can get the map right. So you've got, we've got sort of, so I'm going to Glasgow to London. I've got, if more likely if I go by public transport, I'll have an idea of estimated journey time, which is a measurement. Roughly a halfway marker will be somewhere like Manchester, so I've got a point of reference as to where I'm going to be on that journey. That's in the physical realm. The weird thing about the whole physical realm, the most physical part of us, the skeleton, you can't see it. It's completely encased. But now if we move into the non-waking time, i.e. when you're asleep, where's the point of reference? For example, are you aware that you even dream? If you are aware that you dream, are you aware of the conscious state in the dream? Can you wake yourself up in the dream, i.e. lucid dreaming? And when you're in that dream, as opposed to in the physical world, like if I take this physical world now, I've got points of reference, I've got physical dimensions of this room. I know there's beyond and the outside of this room. And I could sort of envisage the entire UK as its sort of boundary, for example, or I could extend it maybe from doing journeys or just from imagination of beyond that. But what about in the dream? Where's the geography? How big is that reality around you in that dream, or how small is it? Hopefully, I'm sort of bringing or putting a spotlight on sensation and feeling, and then trying to apply logical and analytical and intelligence and description and points of reference to things. How complicated and how complex it becomes when we try and rationalize it and explain it. There's a bit of a sort of conundrum, but just sort of in the thought processes, it's just like, yeah, the action from sitting to standing, or reverse from standing to sitting, how it is so automatic and we don't really give it any conscious thought, and yet it just happens. And that, again, doesn't even take into account where did the idea come from in the first place that gave you that sensation of I need to go from a sitting to a standing position. Never mind as to the reasons as to why, as well as the idea. It may be to go to the bathroom, it may be to go out shopping, or numerous reasons. It becomes more and more complex the further you try and go into it. And yet, as a feeling and a sensation to experience, how easy it is to do and not give a thought to it, but then try and explain it. And that's not even as if you're explaining it to someone like they've never done it before. This is explaining it to everybody, and it's an experience everybody already pretty much has had many, many times. So I feel it says a lot about this reality and our interaction with it. Clearly, there is something about these physical bodies that is tied to this physical reality, in the sense that a good example would be to take a young baby, compare it to a grandparent, and look at the vast difference, and yet the one becomes the other, but it's separated by this measurement of time, although it is the same being, but with a thing called aging, by seeing the perception of time as a measurement on it. It looks a very different being 70 or 80 years later. And this physical reality, everything that is in this physical reality, is subject to time, and it goes through this process of birth, growth, maturity, decay, and then death. But if this whole reality is a hologram, then these are also holograms because they are part of that holographic reality. And it brings into the question of what is real. And again, we're back to how do you explain these things in words? And yet, like with the sitting to standing, the experience of it and feeling that experience, you readily just know inside, but then trying to explain it. Oh, what a complication that becomes. How long would it take to write even a short description from thought to action, leaving aside anything before, anything after, or the circumstances or reason for the action? Hopefully I've explained it, but I feel this also illustrates how difficult it can be to explain things and put into words. And I feel it also highlights this whole thing about experience and feeling as being the only way to go beyond just a concept and to really know. But to put it into words, that is quite a task. I mean, you've got the whole mechanics of the sitting to standing, and I'm no biologist, but I could explain the sort of physical actions as sort of, but I would make a very poor job of it. But it's something you can pretty much all do, and you just know it, don't you? So hopefully that sort of picked something really simple and highlighted something about the nature of this reality and why any channel like this one that does a little bit of deep thinking and probing and just pondering things, just everyday things that we take for granted, and realize that they would appear to be far more complex, especially when you're trying to explain them. I mean, it's what, 13 minutes just to say this, and that's without even really explaining anything. But I feel that what I've highlighted, you may say, yeah, I don't know, you tell me how it feels. I was also thinking, what do I call this video? I've taken a song title, Will the Real Slim Shady Please Stand Up? Well, it's about standing up, so I think we use part of that as the title. And yeah, let me know what you feel about all of this. It just sort of led on from the previous video, and it's like, well, it's in the moment. I need to share this. It's the mind is not going to let me sleep until I've made the video. I know that from past experience. It becomes like a torture. It's like, whether it's your higher self, whatever you want to call it, it just will bombard you, and it's like, you're going to do this, you're going to create this, you're a vessel to express this, and it's like, well, how much free will have I really got then? Another big question in itself. But I feel we're here to have an experience and share those experiences and help each other as best we can. Effectively, what we're doing is saying the same thing, but dressing up in slightly different words to try and help each other, guide each other from the experiences that we've personally gone through, and make this experience and journey in some ways more bearable, easier to navigate through, trying to sort of highlight and point that we are our own worst enemy when we are listening to our lower I consciousness that wants to stay safe. But that would eliminate growth. That would stop or prevent spiritual growth and prevent us from having the experiences, which sort of goes against what we're here to have, which is to experience things. I'll end that there, I think, because it'll just meander if I carry on talking, and it'll just end up really long, and won't say anything more than I've already said in these. Now we're up to 16 minutes, so I'm going to stop there and say love to you all, and just a few thoughts to ponder that I thought I'd share anyway. Ta-ta for now.